Hajime looks in the mirror. He's making sure his outfit looks amazing. He grabs his sword, puts it to the side of his waist, and then leaves his home to see her. Who is this her? Chizuru Yukimura. They are about to go on a date. Before Chizuru leaves her place, she makes sure she is ready for this occasion. In this video I am going to use what we are exposed to in Hakuouki as a way to see how a date between Hajime and Chizuru would turn out. I don't think there is any need to go over the personality of these two characters simply because we already know how they are. Instead, I am going to jump straight into this hypothetical date. So, let's begin. How would this date start? I can imagine Hajime being the one asking Chizuru to go on a date. Hajime the day before is probably thinking about how he is going to ask out Chizuru, where he is going to ask her out, and in what way he is going to ask her out. Like him practicing for hours on his swordsmanship, he will spend hours mentally rehearsing how the big moment is going to unfold. Hajime then the following day sees Chizuru minding her own business, or they might be on patrol. He then says to her, "Yukimura, may I have a moment with you?" Chizuru is perplexed by this. Hajime then says to her, "Yukimura, the moon and the sun are precious to gaze upon, but your beauty is special. I prefer to gaze upon you, rather than the moon and the sun. I want to confess to you I want to go on a date with you." Chizuru blushes. Her kind and sincere nature makes her accept Hajime's request. Hajime, then, is delighted by this. They continue on with their day, and during the night they both get ready for the big day tomorrow. Both of them are preparing for the occasion, thinking about what to wear, what to say, and how the date is going to be. The next day then starts. Since Hajime doesn't have a car or a horse, and same goes for Chizuru, and they live in the same living conditions basically, it makes the most sense to me that they will just meet up at the location they both agree upon. I can imagine Hajime and Chizuru both going on a date that is not materialistic or high-end oriented, as their personalities sway them in a way for a more soulful, genuine, and down-to-earth interaction. I can imagine Hajime and Chizuru going on a date in a nice area of the town, near a lake or pond, around mountains, or somewhere in nature. I think a date between those two will most likely consist of them talking with each other and getting to know each other, but more soulful and in a romantic sense. If you remember, in the OVA special, Hajime was allured by Chizuru. He says this in the special when he sees Chizuru, "You're Yukimura, right?" Yukimura responds, "Yes, I am." He then goes on saying, "It's the first time I've seen you in makeup. I didn't think there'd be such a difference. You're dressed up this way just to help us. I thought you might be doing this unwillingly. However, still, I hope to remove any feelings of regret I may have. So, I should tell you now. Yukimura, there's something I must tell you. Will you listen to my words? I'm sorry. When I see you dressed like this, it makes me a little nervous." Chizuru then replies, "We could talk about it later, but right now." Then Hajime replies, "No, it would not serve its purpose if it is not now. Please listen to me, Yukimura. Prepare yourself for this." And then the bad guys come in and interrupt the special moment of Hajime confessing his feelings for Chizuru. Hajime then says, "Whenever an important conversation is interrupted, it puts me in a foul mood. I won't be able to hold back." It then cuts. The following day Chizuru asks Hajime about what he was going to say. She says this exactly, "That reminds me. Didn't you want to tell me something important, Saito-san?" He responds, "That was, well." She then says, "Could it have been about my appearance as a geiko?" He then says, "No, well." She then says, "I guess it didn't suit me, huh?" After a little exchange in dialogue, then Hajime says, "It was perfectly suited." Chizuru was shocked about this because in between their conversation she was talking about Hijikata potentially growing a beard. She perceived what Hajime said to be regarding that, when in fact that was not the case. She then goes on saying, "Then when you said, it was perfectly suited, what were you referring to?" Hajime says, "That's enough. It's a thing of the past. Let's go." It then fades. At this moment, Hajime was very close to confessing his feelings for Chizuru. It is sad to think about this because in that moment of time Hajime didn't know if he was ever going to see Chizuru again, so he wanted to confess to her how he truly felt to her. Fortunately, they met again, but if that never were to happen, Chizuru would have never known about how Hajime felt towards her. Incidentally, in the end, she never does because Hajime never confesses to her how he truly feels. This may be because Chizuru and Hijikata's love story was in full effect and because of the few episodes there were in Season 2 adding additional complexity to the plotline would damage the storytelling. Also, there was so much going on in Season 2 I can understand the prioritization of certain things in the story over other things. Now, let's get back to the date. I think Hajime would be very subtle about how he feels towards Chizuru and not confess everything right away. I can imagine him making subtle hints throughout the date that he doesn't perceive Chizuru merely as a friend, rather something much more larger than that, a soulmate. I don't expect him to go in for the romantic kiss on the first date. He seems to be someone who takes his time on those things, and because of his soft-spoken and introverted nature it requires him a little bit more time to progress up the ladder of romance. This situation, however, would be much more different for the more outgoing cast members of the Shinsengumi. Both Hajime and Chizuru would slip up and blush a lot, but they would glance over that because of how non-judgmental they are. As their romantic, philosophical walk continues, Hajime might utter something to Chizuru like how he was going to in the OVA, and this time potentially go further than what he was trying to say then. Chizuru will listen and she will be surprised by Hajime's confessions. I think she would probably be the one to initiate them holding hands. This would make Hajime more comfortable around Chizuru. As the date concludes, I can imagine Hajime saying something poetic to Chizuru in terms of how he feels to her, and being the gentleman he is, he will appreciate her presence around him. This is how I believe a date between Hajime and Chizuru would unfold. One thing I do want to say before this video ends is I would like to know your thoughts on this video series and if I should make more videos like this. In addition, would you prefer if I actually go in depth as to what a date between Chizuru and the cast members would be like? Almost like a fanfic using what we know in the Hakuouki universe. Certain spots, locations, and even dialogue that has been said. So, instead of it being a brief explanation, rather an in-depth detailed visual experience for you to watch. This is the video for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I would like to know what you think a date between Chizuru and Hajime would be like.